Are we ready, Jared? Cheryl George is on. I want to welcome all of those present and all of those that are viewing this online. The regular school board meeting is open to in-person participation and available to the public via live streams on the Central Consolidated School District's YouTube channel. We'll begin roll call. Ms. George?
Here.
Mr. Montoya?
Here.
And myself, we have a quorum. Well, if you'll all stand and face the flag. We'll have a pledge of allegiance, and then I've asked Mr. Dave Hammond to offer a prayer. He is the security officer at Kirtland Central High School. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah.
Our Father in heaven, as we bow our heads at the beginning of this school board meeting, we are grateful for the opportunity that we have to be here. We pray that thy Spirit might reside in this meeting, that the needs of the school district might be met, and that the things that we discuss and talk about for the benefit of the children and for the education and safety of the school, that people will be guided and directed in their thoughts and comments, that the meeting might be productive and beneficial to all that are involved. We pray that we might keep the children's needs in the forefront of all the conversations that take place tonight. And these blessings we pray for now. We do it in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. The next item is agenda review. Number B, we start with that. Mr. Montoya?
At this time, I'm still going through the agenda as stated. If you would just give me a minute, please.
Approve agenda and or modifications. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda as stated.
I have a motion to accept the agenda as it appears on the list. Is there any second to that?
Second.
Miss George, are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me? I'm still here. Can you hear me?
There I can, yes.
Okay, and I said I second it.
Yes, would you second it?
Yes.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be accepted as listed. Mr. Montoya?
Yes.
Miss George?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
I vote yes as well.
Thank you. Suzette, are you here? Are we all here then? Next item, comments from the audience. Sharon, do we have any comments to be read in? No comments. Reports. A, 2 resolutions authorizing redemption of District 2015 General Obligation School Bond by Maria Lathy of Cuddy and McCarthy Law Firm. One, resolution authorizing the redemption of a portion of the district's Series 2015 bonds, authorizing the execution of escrow agreement and the other matters related thereto. 2, consideration of and approval of a resolution authorizing redemption of a portion of the district's Series 2015 bonds, authorizing the execution of escrow resolution authorizing redemption of a portion of the district's Series 2015 bonds, authorizing the execution of escrow agreements and other matters related thereto for maturities.
Mr. President, board members, superintendent, good evening, everyone. This is actually Regina with RBC Capital Markets, your municipal advisor. With me is also Greg Salinas, your legal counsel. These are the documents that were discussed last week at the work session, with the 2 documents being the options for the board to authorize the prepayment of the Series 2015 bonds, either in the amount of about $3 million or the extended amount with additional contribution from the general fund in approximately $6 million. So we're here tonight and would be happy to answer any questions on the resolutions or the prepayment discussed last week.
Are there any questions or comments from the board concerning the payment, the early payment of these of these bonds? Vice President Haskey?
Board President,
Do you have any further questions or comments regarding
I
this?
don't have any questions. Thank you.
Secretary George?
No questions.
Ms. Aspas?
yes. On this, I realized it was last week, and since then has our board attorney or our district attorney
look at this paper and some of the questions shared with that attorney?
Mr. President, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Greg Salinas with McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton. We represent the school district jointly with the Cuddy Law Firm. The two resolutions that are before you, and I guess the board needs to make a choice between the two, were drafted by myself. And I was unaware of any specific questions about either resolution. Can address any questions that the board may have. But to answer the board member's question, the resolution was drafted by your lawyers.
Ms. Asmus, did that address your question?
Somewhat, but I'm asking you as board president and superintendent, did you share this with our board attorney or a district attorney? And the questions as well?
So I do believe, I don't know, can you hear me there, Jared? So the conversation and the documents were shared with the attorney who represents the school district in these matters, and that is the Maria Letty of Cuddy and McCarthy Law Firm. And so that's the attorney who looked at the documents. Is that correct, Donovan? Mr. Yazzie?
I can't hear you.
How about now? I'll just keep talking until something happens. How about now? Can you hear me, Miss Aspas?
It's a little bit better, but I couldn't hear you before. It sounds real muffled.
I'm going to go ahead and try again. Hopefully you can hear this. So the documents and the presentation from the work session were shared with the district attorney who represents us in these matters, and that is, we're represented by Cuddy and McCarthy Law Firm for these financial matters, and Maria Letty was the one who reviewed these documents and prepared these. And so that's the attorney that they were shared with.
Okay, and our board attorney or district attorney, nothing was shared with them?
I don't believe so. I believe that in financial matters that these were shared just with this particular law firm.
Okay, are you saying that in a way where our board attorney or district attorney is not included in financial matters?
I suppose that they could be. The assumption was just made that the board would want the folks who were the experts in this type of matter to be the ones who prepared the documents and review the documents and then make the recommendations. However, if that's something that you would desire, we could also include the district's attorney in as well.
Okay, my question, I don't know if you remember, board president or superintendent, but my question was that since this is this bond is going to be paid off earlier than expected. I think the date was 2030. Am I right, Regina?
It's 2029, yes.
2029. And so I was asking if a fee, when the contract was written up, if the RBC fee was included in that for up to 29, and if by paying it off earlier, are we saving as a district in some of that fee cost? So that was my.
So we did provide a copy of our current contract to superintendent and the CFO, and explained how our contract works in regards to the bond issuance. So there's not really a long-term savings when it comes to prepaying debt early and our services that are included. So I also have provided the quotes based on the current contract and a copy and all the disclosures to the superintendent, explaining that the district would be charged based on the current contract as a one-time fee for this defeasance, for this prepayment of the bond.
And thank you for providing that contract. Thank you. But I was hoping that it would go into legal hands and then my question asked. But at this point, I don't know where we would stand other than just go with it.
Just again to reiterate here that the savings that are going to be passed on to the district's taxpayers are coming directly from the tax dollars. The fees that the district has paid historically on issuing debt and even on these serious 2015 bonds, whether it relates to RBC or your legal counsel fees, were paid as a one-time fee in 2015. And now that you're prepaying the debt, there's going to be also one-time fee. I don't believe there have been any fees incurred for this particular bond issue for the district since 2015 from RBC or your bond counsel. Typically, that's not the case unless there's an action taken on that particular bond.
President?
My understanding then, correct me if I'm wrong, the only fees charged are when there is action taken with that bond, is that correct?
That's correct. So if you issue a bond, typically there are fees charged associated with the working group that helps you to issue bonds, some fees with marketing and things like that of the bond. So there are fees with legal counsel, financial advisory, paying agents, parties like that. If you refinance that bond, there are obviously fees associated with that. And if you are prepaying the bond like you're doing right now, there are fees associated with that. You do have some maintenance fees that I know you pay to Bank of Albuquerque as your paying agent on these bonds, that as soon as the debt is paid off will be eliminated. But when it comes to specifically matters related to bond advisors, you only incur fees when the particular action is taken on the bond per our contract.
Okay, I think I understand that. Ms. Asmus, do you have any other questions, or did that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it did, and I do has some comments. So, I think as things around us are getting pretty tight, money wise, and inflation, and our uncertainty for the future. I think those are the kind of questions that we need to start asking, and from our CFO, and especially when it concerns our taxpayers. I know in my district, and including your district, Mr. Wells, but that's why I'm asking these questions. We all deal with banks, and there's always some type of fee for this and that. And I'm surprised that by prepaying or paying off the loan or bond, that we are not saving in some sort. So those, I think my question is relevant, and again, to our constituents who are taxpayers. Thank you.
If I understand right, then any interest accruing against the bond will be eliminated by paying it off early. Is that correct?
Prepaying part of that bond, we're looking, if you prepay, like we have mentioned, maturities 2026 through 2029, we're looking at about $1.1 million in net present value savings, or about $200,000 a year in interest saved to the district. And those are the savings that are ultimately getting passed on to the taxpayers.
That was my understanding. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the board?
Mr. President,
Mr. Montoya?
in respects to these two resolutions and the decisions that we have to make today, my question to the individual who drafted these resolutions from McCuddy Carthy and to the superintendent, are we on a time frame with this? Is there a hard deadline that we have to decide tonight for this?
I'll let somebody else answer that. Go ahead, answer that first, and then I can answer it as well.
Sure. Again, this is Greg Salinas, and I'm not with the Cuddy Law Firm. We do represent the district jointly, but my law firm is McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton. No, there is no hard a date. The decision can be made at any time. I think Regina might have a view of, from a practical matter, when it should be made by vis-a-vis the district's tax rate. But there is no legal deadline in which the board has to make this decision.
All right, I appreciate that, because that's my concern in respects to looking at or looking forward in respects to the district's finances, and understand the importance of the cost savings. That's always good and well. However, I'm coming from the perspective of the board in its entirety and the consideration of having a retreat so we can actually sit and discuss the board's finances, and then possibly come back and revisit this with a much, much better, clear picture and direction of what we want to do, certainly taking this into consideration as one of the focal points. But at the same time, and I know I spoke of this at the last meeting regarding looking out for the cost savings for our taxpayers, especially here in Kirtland, where it really matters. And I know a few of us have said that before, and again this evening, but I would certainly, Mr. President, like to take this as a consideration that we can work on, especially with the formation of the strategic group that we have in consideration to develop for the school district, and use this as one of the focal points in how we proceed in the very, very near future. Thank you.
Board President Wells,
Yes.
I agree with board member Montoya. Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Board
Ms.
President, I have, I'd like to make a comment also,
Go ahead.
if I may. I'm also in agreement, if there isn't that rush to make a decision tonight, I would like to have a more thorough look with the options and the pros and cons for this also. So I'm in agreement with board members Montoya and Aspis. Thank you.
Okay. We will set that aside and review it further.
Mr. President, board members, just to second what Greg said, there's definitely no rush from a legal standpoint on when the district can prepay the bonds. However, we do want to make sure that that excess cash is put into action, that is sitting in your debt service fund before we go into setting tax rates closer to the end of spring, summer of next year. So 2023 would be
Mr. President?
sort of the time, when we would like for the district to take some action in regards to the excess cash sitting in debt service.
If I understand also, the longer this is stretching out, the less interest we save the taxpayers. Is that not correct?
Yes. So the longer you are obviously delaying the decision, the more currently interest you are paying, and less savings are passed on.
Do you have an estimate of, like say per diem or per weekly, what the interest rate of this is that we would be saving?
We can run an estimate on what the monthly cost would be. I don't have an estimate right now in front of me of what the a weekly delay would cost basically the taxpayers.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Mr. Montoya.
With that response, I truly appreciate the consideration that we, as a board, use this to truly be able to move forward with our decisions and looking at, again, the finances of the school district in respects to a retreat, because I know I brought that up at the last meeting, I believe. So this would be a pristine opportunity in order to forward this and to look at it. And again, in respects to how we act on this, we can deal with it when we get down to item 4, review consent items under item A. So just as a consideration, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to B. Discussion of CCSD redistricting by Brad Morrison.
Hello, Mr. President, members of the board. Thanks for having me again tonight. I need to be able to share my screen if the host would allow me to share, because I have a PowerPoint presentation I'd like to use. All right, looks like I have access now. Let me know if you can see my screen with you should see the first slide, Central Consolidated Schools School Board Redistricting. Do you see that?
Yes, I believe,
Mr. President,
I
can you
believe
see
that's
it?
visible to everyone, yes.
Okay. Okay, so again, my name is Brad Morrison. I'm with Research and Polling. I'm a redistricting specialist. I've been doing these projects for 23 years, and I've done numerous school boards, city councils, county commissions, and I'm glad to be here tonight. So first of all, who redistricts? As you know, there are 3 U.S. congressional districts in New Mexico, and then you have the State House, the State Senate, the Public Education Commission, and all of those are the responsibility of the state legislature, and the governor must sign off on them. When you get to the county commissions, the city councils, the local school boards, each of those individual boards or commissions or councils is responsible for their own redistricting. So the only reason I show this slide is just to state that you are the authority on the redistricting, on adopting a redistricting plan for the Central Consolidated School Board. And what is redistricting? Well, simply it's the drawing and redrawing of lines that determine which voters are represented by each district. And this is laid out in New Mexico Statute 22-5-1.1. And what it states is that any school district that has more than 16,000 persons must have single member districts. You can't be in that large district, you must have single member districts. The current population for Central Consolidated Schools, and this is total population, every man, woman, child, is 29,518 people. So you are required to have single member districts, which you do, and we will continue to have. And the reason we redistrict is because every 10 years after the census, there are population shifts within any given elected body's governing area. And there are unequal distributions of change within that area. Even if you don't have population growth, you can still have shifts within the district where the population moves around. And again, we do this once every 10 years after the census, and we use the most current population data. The redistricting process, we start with these public meetings. We go over the redistricting guidelines. I will show you plans, which I have 2 for you tonight. We'll gather any input if there is any, and we can make revisions if we need to. We don't always have to, but if we need to, we can. And then you will adopt a plan. And then following the plan adoption, the county clerk would reassign the voters that have moved between the districts, if any at all, and there will be. But and then you have the filing date for candidates and eventually the election. So that's the timeline for the redistricting process. Now, there are 5 principles of districting, and they are equal population, minority voting rights, compactness of districts, contiguity of districts, and communities of interest. And I'll talk a little bit about each one. First is equal population, and this is, simply we have to calculate an ideal population for each of the districts that we're trying to get to. The total population of Central Consolidated Schools, the district, is 29,518 people. In 2010, it was 33,082. So you've seen a 10.8% decline in population within the school district. That's a loss of 3,564 people. So again, with the equal population principle, we have to figure out what the ideal population is of each district. And it's really simple. You just take that 29,518 people, divide it by the number of districts, which is 5, and you get 5,903 people. That's our target for each of the districts. Now, but the districts must be substantially equal is what the courts have said. And what New Mexico statute says is that we have to be within plus or minus 5% of that ideal. So when you look at the plus or minus 5%, it gives you a leeway of plus or minus 295 people from that ideal. So on the low end, we could have 5,608 people in a district. On the very high end, we could have 6,198 people in the district, or in a district within the board. And again, this is based on total population, not registered voters, not the adult population. This is based on the total population of every person that lives within the boundary of the school district. Next is minority voting strength. And what we mean by this is that you cannot dilute the voting strength of ethnic or language minority groups. This is laid out in the Voting Rights Act in Section 2. It includes all minority groups, including Native Americans, Hispanics, African Americans, etc. But when looking at minority voting strength, we have to remember that we cannot create districts in which race is the predominant criterion in subordination of traditional districting principles. What that means is we can't just look at race, we have to consider the other principles. We can't violate any of the other principles and only take into account race. Next is compactness of districts. It's fairly simple. I like to use these two examples. The image on the left is the blue district there. It's an old image from 1991, but it's New Mexico's 3rd Congressional District. It's a compact district. It's large geographically, but it is compact. If you look at the image on the right, that's the red district there. That's the 12th Congressional District in North Carolina from the same year. And you can see that it is not compact. They basically followed it along an interstate and picked up different populations along the way. The courts deemed that not compact and it was thrown out. And there are different ways to measure compactness. We have several measures within our software, but when it comes down to it, you know it when you see it. And it's not an issue for this particular redistricting project. It's just one of the principles that we have to discuss. The next is contiguity of districts. Again, this won't apply here. We never do this, but you cannot have separate islands of territory. The image on the left shows 3 distinct districts, A, B, and C. The image on the right, you can see that District A is 2 islands. You can't have that separation between a district. You must be able to touch all parts of your district. You have to be able to put a pencil on the paper, draw your district, the boundary of it, without picking up the pencil and going to a different part of the county or a different part of the school district. And last is communities of interest. This encompasses all other factors which may determine where a district boundary could be drawn. It includes respecting political subdivisions, neighborhoods, geographic boundaries, respecting cultural and historical traditions, maintaining the core of your existing districts. It includes avoiding the pairing of incumbents, which the 2 plans we're showing tonight do not pair any of the current incumbents, and any other communities of interest that you can think of. But again, here, we can consider these as long as we don't violate the other districting principles. And things to remember, redistricting plans are rarely perfect. Any single district cannot be looked at in a vacuum. If you change one district, it can create a domino effect that affects the other districts around it. And we consider many different factors, and some of the factors sometimes work against each other. So I'm now going to get into what your current districts look like. You can see the map there on the left side of the page that shows your current districts. I wanted to point out that the blue lines on this map, the blue dotted lines, are the chapter boundaries. So don't get confused by those. What you're looking at is the shaded area. You can see the green District 2 in the north, the light blue District 1 in the northeastern part of the school district, District 3 in the center around Shiprock, District 4, the light brown district, and then District 5 in the southern portion of the school district. But the most important thing on this page is the table on the right that shows the population data. As you can see in District 1, there are 5,547 people, according to the census, in that district. that is 356 people below the ideal. Or put in percentage terms, it's negative 6.0%. And as you recall from the previous slide, we're trying to stay within plus or minus 5%. We're not trying to stay in plus or minus, we have to be within plus or minus 5%. So District 1 compliance of the plus or minus 5%. And then you go down districts will decline in population. So we do have somewhat of a domino effect. That doesn't mean it has to affect every district. It could be just between districts 1 and 4 or 1 and 3 or 1 and 2 because they're next to each other. But I just wanted you to see that and know that that's why we're redistricting, is because at least one of your districts is out of compliance with the equal population principle. The next maps just show your current districts in different views around the school district. This one shows the Shiprock area and the Kirtland area, just the different boundary lines. There's a boundary line between districts 2 and 3 that runs through Shiprock. And then we have the border between 1 and 4 that runs through the Kirtland area. And then we'll go down. This is a more zoomed in view of the Kirtland-Fruitland area. This is precinct 23, 24 in that area. And when I get into the next plan, this will become relevant because this is where I make a change to balance out the population. And there's Shiprock, the current districts. If you see a red star, that is where we have the current incumbents located. It may not be a perfect location, but we feel pretty good about where those locations are. We like to put that on the maps because we do consider where incumbents live. If we can avoid pairing incumbents or if we can keep incumbents within their districts, we'd like to do so. So first is what I call concept A. And it's very simple. Let's first look at the table here. The map in this large view of the whole district is going to look the same. It is the same. But you can see here that the population is now balanced out. We're at 0.4%, 0.1, and these are the deviations, again, from that plus or minus 5% from the ideal population. District 3 is at 3.2%, 4 at negative 2.1, and 5 at negative 1.6. So for this concept, well, for any job that we do for redistricting, one of the first things I do is try to create a concept that creates the least amount of change possible, but it accomplishes the goal of balancing the population and maintaining the other principles. So this particular concept only moved 381 people, and that change was made in the Kirtland, really in the Fruitland area, I guess, Kirtland-Fruitland area, but it's actually this portion right here of precinct 23. The next slide will show it a little bit better. This shows the differences between current and concept A. On the top here is concept A in that area. As you can see, the area that changed, this bottom image, is of the current configuration. Currently, precinct 23 is split between districts 1 and 4. There's an area in here that includes Road 6694, 6686, Road 6682, 6674 in this area. And I assume you can see my cursor, but it's in the bottom image of the slide in the western portion of precinct 23. So that area is now taken in to District 1 in this concept A. That's where the 381 people are. We move them, everything balances out, and the plan is complete. So that's concept A. And again, right or wrong, it's not necessarily that, you know, a minimal change is the best for the school district or the best solution. It's just one option that we try to always prepare for. The next concept is actually came from the Navajo Nation Human Rights Council, and we decided to present it as the second option for you. So this plan moves more people around. Again, that's not necessarily, it's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just, it moves more people around, reconfigures some of the districts. And I'll try to describe some of them. Again, I don't know, because I didn't draw this plan. This came from the Navajo Nation Human Rights Council. I don't know if there were any goals of this plan, but I can tell you the facts of what it does. First of all, it does balance out the population. You can see the deviations here. They're all well within the plus or minus 5%. Now, one of the outcomes of this particular concept is that by shifting some of these areas around, the percent adult Native American population in District 1 increases from 59% to 66%. And by making shifts between 1 and 4, the percent adult Native American in District 4 decreases from 78% to 72%. So just on the big picture here, looking at this map, you can see that District 4 has moved south to the bottom portion of the school district. District 5 pushes up around it's actually in the Nananazad area. And that's this precinct, this area right in here. District 3 wraps now, it pushes a little bit more, pushes a little more into Shiprock area on the north side. District 1 actually picks up this little portion of the Hogback chapter that used to be in another district over here. And again, District 1 pushes south, picking up this San Juan and Nanazad area, just pointing that out. And then I'll show you a little bit more detailed map here. Again, this is the Shiprock. This shows both Shiprock and Kirtland. Shiprock over here, Kirtland, Fruitland over here. And again, you can see District 1 has pushed south into Nananazad. District 5 has pushed up a little bit into this area that wraps around up to the eastern side of Shiprock. The incumbents remain in their districts.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Morrison, on the map that you have up between District 2 and District 3, where is the San Juan River?
The San Juan River. You want to know in this area over here?
So looking at that map, from what I can see,
the San Juan River is the boundary in this area right in here, if you can see my cursor.
okay, because that's currently with District 2, everything north basically is District 2. Now it seems like on this new one, District 2 would be south of the river.
Right, so let's discuss that. So when this plan was presented to us and we reviewed it and we inputted it all into our system, those district numbers that you see on the screen were flipped. What's shown as District 3 there was District 2, and what's shown as 2 was shown as 3. And the reason those numbers were changed for this plan is because it would have moved the two board members into each other's respective districts based on the shifts that were made geographically. So we simply changed the number of the district so that the incumbents remained in the number of the district that they were originally in. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Because again, just from the configuration itself, just from a regional standpoint of utilizing the river as a border to the district, if you're just flipping the numbers and increasing this little bit, what it seems like it looks like on both of them, especially with that wraparound of 3/2. Again, just from a point of consistency on how it's laid out. There you go. Okay, I see that. Yeah.
So let's
again,
look
the
at,
concern
if you
is,
want
to me,
me
is
to,
the
I can
river.
show you current again, and you can see. So you see how this is the current map I'm back on now. So you see District 2's in the north. District 3 is Shiprock and South, right? Red Valley, Shiprock. When I go back to the Navajo Nation Human Rights Council option, you can see that the numbers are flipped. But the reason, again, is because the incumbents, where you can see, may not be able to see it very well here, but where the incumbents live currently, the incumbent for 2 is here, and the incumbent for 3 is here. So in the way that the plan had shifted, we had to flip-flop those numbers to keep people within their district number. Otherwise, it would cause confusion in the election, the next election, when one person's up and then you're not in your district anymore. Does that make sense?
Board President? Okay, Mr. Morrison, it's just crazy to think that, in the primaries, when that occurred, and the redistricting, I know a lot of people were upset, on the way the districts were drawn, and some that who they voted for, they were no longer in their district, and
Right.
and then also there was that line where you have a chapter house, and yet the road to Upper Fruitland Chapter House towards the east side was all a different district. And then on the west side, which included Chapter House, was in a different district. I mean, it was ridiculous. And
Yeah, I understand. I assume you're talking about legislative redistricting. Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah, the state. Yeah.
And people were very upset, and I know a lot of the chapter, they took those, but I don't, people were asking, why didn't they just leave it alone? Now we're in districts that we didn't even vote for those people, and now we have somebody that represents us that we don't even know. So I just wanted to include that.
Yeah, your concerns up there, they happen every time, and it's a valid concern, and it does cause confusion sometimes. With the chapter boundaries, there's a lot of history with redistricting surrounding the chapter boundaries, and I know our firm has worked with Mr. Gorman numerous times on different redistricting projects. In some cases trying to align better with chapter boundaries. One of the problems is that chapter boundaries are not always census block boundaries. So they can't always be used because we have to use census block boundaries. But oftentimes for example, when they realigned the precinct boundaries in San Juan County a couple of years ago, and tried to line them up more with the chapter boundaries. They couldn't get it perfect, but they tried to line up the precinct boundaries a little better with the chapter boundaries. Now, this particular plan, like I said, it came directly from the Navajo Nation Human Rights Council. We did not change any boundary. We left it exactly as is. The only thing that I talked to Mr. Gorman about was this issue between districts 2 and 3, which in the original configuration just had those numbers flip-flopped, which would have caused, it's a little bit difficult to explain, but in the next election, there would be a candidate up for election who would not be able to run based on that configuration because they wouldn't be in their district anymore. So when I talked to him, he agreed that, yeah, we could just flip those numbers, the district 2 and 3 numbers, to accommodate the plan that they created, which would keep the incumbents in their current district number. I hope that makes sense. I know that's a mouthful.
Are you able to enlarge that a little bit more?
Yeah, what do you want to see specific? Well, hold on just a second. Let's look. You want to see where do you want to see?
Well, I want to see that 2 and 3 where you're talking.
Like closer into Shiprock?
Yeah, the start.
Hold on just a second. Let me point out one thing before we get into Shiprock. This area between 1 and 4, what I wanted to point out is that in this plan, between districts 1 and 4, we have, and then I will go to Shiprock right after this, but so precinct 26 here moves from District 1 into District 4. And again, this is in the Kirtland area. 26 moves into 4. And 24 moves into 4 in this scenario. 25 is already in District 4. And then again, District 1 pushes down into that Nananazad San Juan here. Now let me go to Shiprock.
Before you change,
Oh yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So where is the road, the old Kirtland Highway? Is it that red line there?
So the old Kirtland. So see here, hold on just a second.
Where's the main road and then?
Well, this is 64 running right here.
Okay, and that black one, is that the old Kirtland?
The black here?
Yeah.
Yeah, in our system, it's called Road 6100, which I don't know. You would have to answer that question for me. I don't know if that's called the old Kirtland. Road 6100. I'm just looking on another map. But yeah, that runs. Right through up to 64 here. Okay. Yeah, it is called the Old Kirtland Highway. I see it right here. It says Old Kirtland Highway right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I just wanted to show you these changes before we got to Shiprock so you could kind of see what was happening in the Kirtland area under this scenario.
Okay.
And then going into Shiprock, this is the boundary between districts 2 and 3. Again, the blue dotted line is the chapter boundary line, so try not to get confused by that. Look at the shaded areas where you have the green, District 2, tan, District 3. This, let's see here.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a sense of where I'm at. So
I'll try to show you. So this, just so you know, this red star here is where we have Mr. Montoya represented. And obviously this is Highway 491 here. This is where 64 comes across and then goes south. This is Bluff Road, this boundary between 2 and 3 here.
so that too, where's Wacabato?
Okay, hold on. So when you say Clabato, do you mean just the chapter itself or in relation to this?
Yes.
So the top, according to the boundaries provided to us by the Navajo Nation, the Clabato chapter, do you see this blue dotted line up here?
Yes.
So right here it says Clabato. And so everything, it's west and northwest of District 2 here. It would be off this map, but going west and northwest up in this direction.
So now you're saying District 3 now has Wacabato?
Yeah, I'll go back to that map. Hold on just a second. So you won't be able to see it. I can read it, but you may not be able to. Again, right in here is the Shiprock area between Districts 2 and 3. And then this is the chapter boundary for Wacabato. So yes, it's in District 3. And Red Valley.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes.
what is the time constraint on this decision to be made?
By the end of the year, it has to be done by December 31st. So, the hope would be is that, that you would be able to adopt a plan no later than your next meeting in December.
So is the goal here to replicate what they have legislative as they did the legislative districts?
Well, I think that would be a question for Mr. Gorman and
I saw that as ridiculous, and especially for Native community, and when it concerns the chapter. Nowhere else would it split a chapter members, where I didn't see, and the only the ones that I saw was Upper Fruitland and other places, Ninahanzad. And I say this because I ran for state rep, and from what I saw in the lines, it was crazy. Ninahanzad, I still don't know, still very unclear about where the boundary was, somewhere by the river. That's all I was told. And then also with Upper Fruitland. But
Yes.
I'd like more time if possible.
And again, I wouldn't want to presume to know exactly what the motivations were for where they put the lines for this particular concept. But one of the main takeaways that I have from it is that the percent adult Native American in District 1 increases from 59 to 66%. And 66% adult Native American in the district by many groups is deemed, anything above 66% is deemed, it's sort of a threshold that a lot of groups try to get to or maintain when looking at the viability of Native Americans electing a candidate of their choice. So again, no one said that to me from the Human Rights Council, but that was my takeaway from this plan. It's something I wanted to point out because it is a demographic change that it was one of the resulting demographic changes based on where the line. And if you want to know, I can tell you, currently, when you're just going down the list, District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when you're looking at percent adult Native American, and currently, not this concept, the current plan that you're operating under, that you were elected under. District 1 is 58.9%, District 2 is 95.4%, District 3 is 91.6%, District 4 is 77.7%, and District 5 is 96.8%. Under this Human Rights Council concept, District 1, like I say, increases from roughly 59 up to 66.2%. District 2 and 3 stay high at 95.7 and 91.3. District 4 drops a little from 78 to 71.8. And then District 5 is at 96.6%. So those were some of the demographics that we reviewed in looking at these plans when we were analyzing this particular concept. And I don't know if you want to see any other maps, but that's pretty much it as far as the changes that occurred with that particular concept. And just to recap, the concept A that we developed, again, is a minimal change plan that just moves a small neighborhood in the Kirtland area. So, it would be a current plan with a very minor change. Again, this little area in Precinct 23 would no longer be split, and that neighborhood would go into District 1. And that's it. That's the extent of that. So if there's anything else anybody wants to see, I'd be glad to show it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm glad to show anything. I'm here to answer your questions. So if you just need more time to think about it, that's great. We can discuss, hopefully be able to adopt a plan at your next meeting. We are a little bit in a time crunch situation now at the end of the year, trying to get these jobs done before the end of the year.
We thank you for that explanation. For myself, I need to do some more studying. It isn't quite clear in my mind. But are there any other questions from the board?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for the detailed explanations.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Aspis?
No, I'd like to revisit and go over this more.
Ms. George?
No questions.
Mr. Montoya?
No questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll be in touch with the superintendent. And if anyone else has questions, maybe you can funnel them through the superintendent or contact me directly, but I'd be glad to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison.
Thanks.
I'd be happy to help you with that process, and I believe I have a fairly good understanding where I could have some conversation with individual board members if they would like.
Once again, thank you. Item C, fundraising request by Nan Walters. Shiprock High School Athletic Breakfast, Lunch, Dinner, and Sales to Shiprock High School Athletics. Donation from companies 3, Shiprock High School Athletics for Community League Volleyball and/or Basketball League.
Good evening, board president, superintendent, board members. This is Nanelle Walter from Shiprock High School. We're asking to get approval for fundraising for breakfast, lunch, or dinner sales to the community, like Navajo taco sales. We talked about pancake breakfast sales, bringing in the community. This would help provide students with our senior portraits, student incentives, sports apparels, and supplies. The second one is asking for donations from different companies, community members, alumni, different businesses in our area. We also have this academic productions that's willing to donate some t-shirts and different items that we can use during our games to help get some supplies for we have some tournaments coming up, basketball tournament, wrestling tournaments that it helps provide funding to pay for our supplies for the tournaments that we bring in a lot of different schools from different areas to run our tournament. And the last one is to put on a community league for our community here. We did do one in the summer, a grass league. So we are having people that are asking. Currently, we do not have a facility for our community members. So we want to provide that for our community here in Shiprock.
Any questions from the board?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Walters.
Thank you.
Board President, I have a comment.
Go ahead. Ms. George, go ahead.
I just, in regards to that last, request for fundraisers, just be mindful, Mr. Superintendent Carlson, that, there's no competitive, fundraisers during, lunchtime with the meals served during lunchtime in the schools. And there's only a, certain amount of, times that they can have fundraisers throughout the year. I think it's like 2. So we might want to revisit those New Mexico statutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it from the board? Item D, request for approval of gift donation for ICO Steve's blanket by Dr. Luisa Lopez Martinez.
Good evening, Board President Wells, members of the board, and Superintendent Carlson. This is Mia speaking. I'll be presenting the donation form on behalf of Dr. Lopez Martinez.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we recently got Steve's Blankets in Farmington as a vendor in our vendor system. And when we put in an order for supplies, Steve had given us donations, or he asked if we would include the donations on the invoices. And some of those donations are masks, pens, hand sanitizers, and notebooks. And it seems that with every request from Steve's Blankets, he includes a donation on that invoice. So this is the donations that he wants to donate to the district, since it is a school district. And this is the details that I provided. And the masks, the hand sanitizers will be given to parents that have requested for additional masks for their parents. Pens and notebooks will be given out during this month's Heritage Month school events to support student academic and achievement, and that could also be used in the next coming months as well. I am open for questions.
Any questions? Comments from the board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Item E, RFP 2022-841-118 bid evaluation, central office electrical upgrade by Ms. Thompson.
Board President,
There you are.
good evening. Board President, Superintendent Carlson, board members. Tonight, I would like to bring to you the RFP evaluation for the central office electrical upgrade with the recommendation of Echo Electric. The evaluation was based on the results through the RFP process. The scope of work for this project is to upgrade the existing electrical panels, main distribution panels, lift stations, and modifications to the NTUA meter installations and transformers with underground distribution also. So you can see at the bottom, we had 2 contractors respond to the bid, Echo Electric, was the respondent, the other was unresponsive in their submission to the district. The one we would like to recommend is a local vendor, has done work in the district, and is familiar with our processes. And with that, I stand for any questions.
The recommended contractor is who then?
Echo Electric.
Okay. And they are local?
Yes, sir. They are out of Farmington.
Okay.
And this was a mandatory pre-bid meeting. We had several primes attend the meeting, and only 2 submitted proposals to us.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Montoya?
Ms. Thompson, have we utilized Echo Electric Company?
Yes, we have. We've been using them in subsidizing our lack of an electrical position in the district, short a licensed electrician in the district. They have been supplemented to help us with the workload. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Are there any other questions from the board? Ms. Thompson, thank you.
Thank you.
Item F, discussion of survey of educational providers on EA providing support services. Ms. Sutherland.
Good evening. So, I didn't put a presentation together because from what I understood, it was, the board was gonna have question or come up with a survey. But I did want to just say that, you know, I did bring some surveys that we've given out. We've been doing them, if you'd like to see them, and that we think that, you know, surveys are a good idea. They're a good indicator. What we approve, you know, it's a good baseline and a focus for us, and that's what we try to use them for, is to plan and create a vision. And also, like Mr. Deswood tells us, what gets measured gets done. So that's kind of been on the forefront of our department as well. So we can create action plans off of surveys and whatever we need to do.
Mr. President?
Mr. Montoya.
So I'm the one that made the request. Again, what I would like to see developed is a survey for the educators that actually provide the services in the buildings, in the classrooms, and the EAs to be included in that, and possibly even the teachers that may have to work with the same students. And it would be to encompass, and I appreciate the fact that you just acknowledged, Ms. Sutherland, to utilize that to help develop, because that's really what we need to do, is to try to ensure that we're providing the best service to these individuals that are providing this education for these students. Because as we all know and understand, this is very, very important, just like any other education, but the federal statutes and laws that we have to abide by, and the services that we're providing are very, very serious. So that is my question and concern, is that we survey the educators in the buildings in respects to how they're being serviced by the Student Support Services Department. Mr. Superintendent.
If you don't mind, I'd like to respond to that a little bit. Board President Wells, board members, I don't have any objection at all to surveys in general, and the only concern that I would have with this particular survey would be surveying a singular department, with avoiding a survey that would encompass sort of all of the different departments that we have. And I think that that's something where if we wanted to ask how we're serving them, we'd want to talk about how we're doing for ICO, how we're doing financially, how we're doing with operations. I think all those are important as well. Maybe they don't have quite the same ramifications of legality, but I think it would be better to do something that would be more across the board, that we could develop, that would just basically be a customer service survey, because we're all about serving customers. And I'd like to see something developed that would actually be able to do that with all the different departments. We do have, for certain folks, we do have surveys that the teachers do about their principals every year. The PED has those surveys. We do have surveys of regular ed teachers. So, and to your point of having those teachers being surveyed, but the special ed teachers do not, we do have those surveys. So we would not need to develop something for regular ed teachers. But I think it's something that would be better to do across the board, and just to get a good idea where we are. Obviously, when you ask the survey, you say, you know, which department are you in? So it would encompass, of course, student services, but it would be broader. That would be my recommendation.
Board President, may I make a statement?
Go ahead.
I agree with Board Member Montoya, because as a community member, there's a lot of and talking to other schools, there are concerns that I have specifically within areas of how we're providing services to our SPED students. So, and with our EAs, I'm in complete agreement with Board Member Montoya to have that feedback. And it's great that we would have get the feedback from the rest of the staff, but I really would like to know what specifically with our EAs and with how we're providing services. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So just, we do surveys after all our trainings, and so we have that data if I need to provide that. And I think that just a couple of points, not that we welcome the opportunity. I just want to also just maybe provide some education about our department and special education, and this I think would be a good opportunity that we should look at special education as a service and not a place, that all students must have a sense of belonging and acceptance inspired and reinforced by their school community. General education is always the first consideration for any student with an IEP, and decision-making regarding special education services is a team process inclusive of the family and the student. Also, I think that most people do not realize that special ed services compliance, outcomes, and funding are totally based on data collected at the district, state, and federal level. So under the Office of Civil Rights, 504 Disabilities Act, and IDA, CCSD is accountable to provide services in the least restrictive environment, regardless of funding. This was some data that I thought was interesting. So on an IEP, it's about 23, 24 pages long. And out of those pages, there's 27 to 42 items taken from the IEP, and then it's entered into special programs in Power School. Then that's extracted into the STARS program, which is the state, which oversees our compliance. Then that goes up to the feds in Office of Special Education in Washington. So all of our data and compliance is reviewed at local, state, and fed level. But I just thought that was interesting to see. And that we did get our annual determination. It's always like a year behind. And we passed with 100%. So in our areas that you're required to make 100%. So I just want to give a shout out to our IEP teams and our department that collect all the data and work on that data. They've just really been doing a good job. So I just wanted to say that you know, we try really hard, and we do believe in the kids is our focus. And I know that sometimes it could be perceived that, you know, it's us against them, but we really try to build the teams, and we're sometimes, you know, we have to look at the students' needs and make sure that they're getting what they need. But we can always grow, and that's what we kind of say is we learn from every incident, and sometimes we don't always know the answers. So that's what I wanted to say.
I have a real quick question for board members who are advocating for this survey. That survey would go out to support providers, regular ed teachers. What about other stakeholders, parents, students? Because like I said before, I'm not against any kind of a survey, and we can make that happen. However, there are lots of questions we can ask folks about services. For instance, technology. Are students able to utilize their technology? And so our different departments can use results in a variety of different ways. I would just want to know kind of who would be the audience for that survey, or the takers.
I'm certainly not adverse to including other departments, because it's important and imperative to understand that we are providing the best service possible. I'm not here to survey Washington once they receive all the compliance records. It's to know that the people that we're servicing, that are our customers, are satisfied with the work and the services that they're being provided, especially being supported inside those classrooms, inside those buildings, every single one of them. If I didn't think that was a concern, I wouldn't be asking the question. Now, in respects to, again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean, we could spread that across the entirety of every single department. Like I said, I'm not adverse to that, and I'm not even adverse for the people to survey the board. I have no qualms with that. But again, I want to get to the root cause. You need to understand exactly what the hell's going on in these departments and what's being done or not being done. And that's what the survey is going to tell us. So that way we can correct, or certainly enhance, make better, make more efficient the services that we're providing under the legal statutes for which they fall under.
Are you aware, Mr. Montoya, of any shortfalls of any of these departments? Is that what is causing your concern?
Concern in general. I think that's a broad enough answer. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I will make sure we do have, as everyone knows, we do have a brand new data department who can make sure that survey goes out to the appropriate folks, the stakeholders that need to complete the survey. We can compile results and we can bring them back to you. I believe probably for the next board meeting.
Yeah, because I've been going through and looking and searching and finding, and there's quite a few surveys out there from different districts, different areas that can be applicable. I'm not saying pulling from, but certainly there's questions that are consistent that we can certainly look to, I should say. Because again, my attitude is we're here to provide the service in the best manner that we can. And we need to understand that and do that. And again, if I have a concern from the community and I bring it here, then in respects to trying to get the best service possible, then that's what we need to do. Again, from all departments. That's why I said I'm not adverse to that. So, thank you.
Did you want to look at these that I brought? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. Item G, Indian Education Committee report by Ms. Cifuentes.
Good evening once more, Board President Wells, members of the board, and Superintendent Carlson. Again, my name is Mia Cifuentes. I work in the ICO department as the JOM supervisor. And tonight I have a second presentation on the IEC committee. I have a few members of the IEC online and our Vice President Beverly Maxwell, and I will be doing the report for you. So I'll go ahead and start off on the report, and then Ms. Maxwell will go ahead and finish out. So for the Indian Education Committee, we have membership based on 3 regions: the Shamrock region, the Nashidi-Newcomb South region, the Kirtland-Ojo region, and then we have representation from our Dream Diné Charter School. And as an introduction, the IEC fully participate in the planning, development, implementation, and evaluation of the JOM program by approving, disapproving program requests during the fall and spring needs assessment with schools. They analyze the JOM family survey, and we meet once a month on the second Tuesday of every month from 4:30 to 6:30 from September to June. We currently have 9 seats on the parent committee. Committee members are elected with persons acting in local parentis or assuming the place of parents, such as legal guardians or parents of adopted children. School officials or school administrators are not eligible per the 25 CFR. I've included a school year 2022-2023 meeting schedule that has been shared publicly. Again, it's every month on the second Tuesday, and it's both online and in person, and that information gets shared with a public notice. Currently, we have 3 contracts with the Navajo Nation. We have the first contract, which is a modification from previous years known as Year 1 and Year 2. The extension has been extended to December of this year to expend all funds. Our next contract is from last school year 2021-2022. And again, that extension has been extended to December of this year. And then finally, we have our current school year 2022-2023, and that is from July 1st all the way to June 30th. Some of the activities we have going on are services such as the parental cost application. As of today, we have 114 students that have utilized the parental cost services. We've helped cost shared field trips up to 18 trips. We've had our IEC members do 4 school visits, and our family JOM survey, we've had 89 responses so far. And then I've included some of the flyers that I've been sending out to our local 13 chapters, our radio stations, our social media, our district website. And Ms. Maxwell, if you want to go ahead and begin.
Yes, good evening. I hope you can hear me. I think in general, Mia has covered much of the work that the Indian Education Committee does as outlined in the policy for the JOM program, which is a federal program. And I just want to go back to just information about the membership. Currently, we have 5 members active out of the 9. 3 from Shiprock area, 1 from the South region, Nashidi-Newcomb, and then the Dream Dinesh Charter School parent representative. And we try to reach out for parent involvement. I've heard announcements through the radio station put out by the JOM staff, and continue to pull in parent representatives from the areas that are vacant. And I also want to kind of add a little bit more as to what Mia mentioned in terms of the IEC conducting monitoring school visits with principals, teachers, and counselors. And so part of that work goes toward identifying needs assessments from the different regions, and also when we do that work, we also analyze feedback from the Johnson O'Malley Family Survey in depth, and there are areas that usually come out that need improvement, that is provided back by the surveys. And so then you have your needs assessment information that comes out of that in areas of improvement, as well as recommendations that show up. That is administrative, and that goes to administrative as well as the school board. And I've done a couple of those for the previous 2 school years, and I'm not sure if I've ever really the recommendations that have gone forward to the school board, if they've ever really arrived there in these surveys and needs assessments that we do. But so I just wanted to kind of add a little bit of information to what has reported, and I think one thing that wasn't mentioned in her report is the recent acknowledgement at the national level for the Johnson O'Malley program, in which the school district and the Johnson O'Malley program under CCSD was recognized at the national level for all the hard good work that the JOM program staff and IEC have been doing. And I wasn't available to attend that particular event, but we did have one IEC member attend who has recently come on board. So I think that is what I like to share. I don't know if there was anything specific that board members would like to be enlightened on, but I can answer any questions that board members may have.
Thank you, Beverly. And before any questions are asked, I just wanted to also provide that our department has been doing extensive recruitment, such as visiting school sites, speaking with the principal about any active parents within their schools. We've been hitting up various central consolidated events such as sports, cap and gown, Jostin representatives. We've been doing plenty to do recruitment, but in the past years, even before, this current administration was in place with the JOM program, it's always been difficult finding parent representatives to be included. And just as of recently, majority of our members did have to resign because their students were no longer within the district, and that's one of the qualifications in order to be a member. So as soon as their students left the district, they also had to resign. And we are also open to questions at this moment.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Comments? Thank you, Ms. Cifuentes.
Thank you, Board President Wells, members of the board, and Superintendent Carlson.
Item H, discussion on commitment of CCSD to equity and educational support, educational opportunity, policy by Jermaine Chappelle. Ms. Chappelle?
Good evening, Board President, board members. I'm not sure how to proceed with the discussion. We did read the draft last meeting. I note that this is a discussion item. We can go back to any questions board members may have, but it appears we will need probably a special meeting to vote on this to meet the November 30th deadline. And I believe Superintendent Carlson and I talked about that as well, and I welcome Mr. Carlson's comments also.
Thank you, Ms. Chappelle. I agree with Jermaine that it would probably require a special meeting as soon as possible, probably possibly. I was going to take off Monday, but if we have to do it Monday or Tuesday, I'd be willing to do whatever. The next week at the very latest, since it's the end of November, is the deadline to have this in place.
Well, that doesn't give us too much time then, does it?
And just by way of clarification, this was originally brought in front of the board, I believe, in August, and it had gone through about 9 public comment meetings. But we want to be extremely open to public comment and as much review as possible. So that's why we're continuing to make sure that we bring it in front of the board with enough time for discussion. With that, I stand for questions, Board President.
Special board meeting then? Is that what we're talking about? What other?
Board President, can I make a comment, please?
You may.
This is Doc. Since we have all the board members here tonight, as well as superintendent and assistant, can we please set a date to have a special meeting?
Mr. President?
Mr. Montoya.
I think once we get down to, again, item 4, just as the first one we were discussing, pull that from the consent agenda so we can set up a special meeting to be able to deal with these things sooner than later. Thank you.
Board President, may I ask a quick question?
Go ahead, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, sir. Board Member Montoya, are you suggesting having a special meeting to address both the board policy and the potential bond prepayment?
Either that or just whichever one is the most pertinent. Obviously, the one with the equity is one with the shorter time frame, correct?
Yes, sir, but we could do both. It's not currently on the consent agenda is why I was clarifying.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction.
Yes, sir.
Do we need a motion for that? Move that okay. We'll move to the next item. I, discussion of donation by Mr. Yazzie. Thank you, Ms. Chappelle.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Carlson. Yes, moving on to the discussion item of donations. The board had requested information, to my understanding, relating to the donation process as well as budgets associated with the athletic department. So what we went ahead and did is created a presentation for the board, letting them know how the budgets are allocated for the athletic department, as well as information relating to expenses related to this particular department. We did also request for the athletic coordinator to join us this evening too as well. So just kind of a rundown of what is encompassing the athletic budget. It is budgeted from 2 funds, the general fund, 11,000 fund, as well as what is taken in from gate revenue. The budget process for both of the funds begin in the springtime. Information is sent out to all the sites. As far as the spreadsheet goes, it's sent to the principals and the coordinators, and they let us know how much they need for each of the different departments. For the 11,000 fund, allocations are used based off of the 40th day count. So each of these allocations that are sent out are sent out to each of the sites, and they are to support the needs within each of the school buildings, which also include direct construction for the school, any unused budget within the school system will be used within other places in the district. I believe we have deadlines that we set across the board with all the sites. I think we had one pass October 1st, and the next one I believe is February 1st for the deadlines we're speaking about. Moving on to the next slide. Kind of a general rundown of the budget for the athletic programs. We listed here each of the sites and separated what has been allocated for each of the sites out of the 11,000 fund and what has been generated for the gate revenues. And so also listed on this particular format is the number of athletic programs, and we gathered this information from what we have in our vision system. So we based the data for the number of athletic programs on the types of expenditures that come out of each of those places. So when we looked at that, we found there was, for example, we have Kirtland Middle School allocated to this school out of the general fund was $43,900, and the school generated, we have a revenue of $33,000 that was allocated to this site. And there is 9 athletic programs for this, and this is for approximately 430 students based off of the 40-day count. So each of the school sites are listed there, which has the budget encompass total for the 11,000 fund, approximately $1.2 million, as well as what's within the gate revenue for the fund, $22,411,000. So each of the, as a reminder, the 11,000 budgets are based off of the spreadsheets that are sent to the principals, and they are given to our department. That's how we disperse these funds to each of the school sites. Next page. So just kind of give a general breakdown and overview of how the budgets are used for the athletic program. The 11,000 general funds are used for stipends and payroll benefits, student travel, supplies and materials, professional development, employee travel, supply assets, less than 5,000. Also for the gate revenue, these funds primarily cover the game worker, timesheet, student travel, supplies and materials, professional development, employee travel, and supplies and assets greater than 5,000. Okay, so just to give a as far as budget use, there's a little excerpt there that says that this does not include the local budget allocation. So the schools are given a allocation as well. So this is not inclusive of that. So if I go down to the historical data for the 11,000 fund, kind of a breakdown for each of the years from 17-18 all the way to 21-22. Here is a expense for each of the for those years, and the expenses include salaries, benefits, student travel, meals, equipment, uniforms, coaches, gear, supplies from all the middle schools, high schools, and district athletes. This is for regular season and postseason games, just to include the state tournaments. So as you can see, the district so far, I believe last year we had roughly $2.2 million in expenses for the athletic program. Kind of an overview of the 22,000 fund. Again, the last 5 years, starting from 2017, the revenue, our expenses for out of the 22,000 fund, these again cover game worker, timesheet, student travel, meals, equipment, supplies from all middle schools and high schools, just for the regular season only. So if you can look at one of the years, FY 20 to 21, you can see that the revenue, the district did not acquire as much revenue, and the expenses were greater than the revenue. And that was, I believe that was the year COVID happened. Also, some other things to consider too is what the district is putting into the athletic program. These are the funds that the and projects that the district are paying for the athletic department. We have a soccer field scoreboard for both KMS and TBA. Maintenance on the gym floors, the totals are right there. And bleacher replacements. I believe this total here is $584,481 for this year construction projects. I believe we do have some other projects that the operation department is working with that are in the planning stages right now. So we are investing in the resources for our students in the sports program as well. Just kind of an overview of what was spent last year for the sports program. We had football renovations, renovations to the baseball and softball field over at Shiprock High School, and then just a rundown of everything here listed on this project list from last year. I believe these are completed. Director Thompson. I think we had a brief meeting with her that she. So approximately $3 million, $3.1 million on projects that were spent. Correct. So these are completed and done from last year. Thank you. And kind of looking at the workflow.
Go ahead, Mr. President. Mr. Yazzie, I think it's more for superintendent and Ms. Thompson. I appreciate all this work that's being done. I really do, because it needs to be. But I know the consideration has also been made for that public use of the track that's behind the administration building. Is that still a consideration?
There's a PO in place, so yes.
Also, one thing we looked at too is looking at the workflow for the funding sources, how the funding flows through. The funding is allocated at each of the school sites, and those workflows come from the school level. The requests for the athletic coordinator as well as the coach, and I believe that's how a lot of these projects are funded and looked at, is gathering information and data from that site level. And then from there, it flows through, should flow through the district athletic department, and then from there, the request is made district-wide as far as construction and finance to help with allocating funds for that budget there, for each of those budgets. And then likewise, kind of the same when it comes to requests from the school level as well too. Kind of a flow chart, an overview of the donation policy. It's also, we listed the policy numbers there. This is kind of a workflow that's in our CCSD Business Policy and Procedures Manual. So each of the donation forms are completed at the site level and done by the staff, and those get routed to the site department administrator supervisors. And at that level, the site administrator is to review the forms for compliance and to look at them to make sure that that at that level it's a essential need there. They sign those forms and they send it to our department in the finance office, and that's routed out to the superintendent for signature, and then that is sent to the governing board. The presentations that are done, and then all the monetary donations and how they are spent, that is the responsibility of each of the site levels.
Question.
Go ahead.
This is in regards to the, I believe it's a comment from Ms. George in respects to what Ms. Walters was asking for the continuation of fundraising. They're not inhibited, or are they inhibited from doing that year round? Does that address that? If they're doing fundraising for like the high schools or the junior high?
Board Member Montoya, members of the board, Superintendent Carlson, I believe this process that we're referring to is just for the donation process. There is a process for fundraising requests that's a different flow chart, and that is done through the athletic department, athletic program, and so that is separate from what this actual process is here. And so. And one thing too that we did when we got this request was, thank you. I want to also give special thanks and shout out to Ms. Herbie Ellison. She worked diligently on helping with preparing a majority of this report and sending out the surveys to the staff. She's been also working collaboratively with the athletic department as well as all the financial secretaries within that department to help support the needs of the district in that area as well as the needs of the students. I want to say thank you publicly to Ms. Ellison for all her work in processing this, and thank you for being here as well for your support too. She went ahead and prepared a survey, and she sent this out to all the high school students. I'm sorry, my apologies. She sent it out to all the middle school and high school athletic coordinators and principal to obtain their feedback so that we are able to use the information from this survey to provide possible training opportunities and to possibly improve the process that there may be potential breakdown. So we want to go ahead and use this to that advantage there.
May I?
Go ahead.
Do you, is that continuous throughout the year as far as trying to make that efficient and effective? When you survey when you're surveying for the processes with the people that are actually doing the work? No?
As far as processes go, no, this is the first time that we're doing that with this
Okay.
particular topic, with the athletics and the budgets, working with the coaches, or I'm sorry, the athletic coordinators.
Okay.
So this is the first one that we've done, which, as you see the results, indicates that there's some areas of improvement that we can consider.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, next slide. Some of the questions we asked to the sites, the first question is, does your school location have a local building level? Ms. Herbie, you want to do this part? Is that okay?
That's fine. Okay, so one of the questions that we ask is, does your school location have a local building level process for athletic program purchases? We had a total response of 4 schools. We sent out the survey to the 3 middle schools, the 3 high schools, and then the district athletic office. And out of the 7, we had a response of 1 for yes, 3 no, and then 3 no responses. The next question, do building athletic purchases align with the spring budget template for Fund 11,000 and 22,000? A response of yes for 3, 1 is unknown, and then 3 no responses. Next question, how is the need to request donations identified? 1 school responded that each coach knows their budget and based the donation on need, and the school contacts the district office for additional needs. Another school responded, donations are identified based on large events or unforeseen expenses. Another school responded, our school location has a process when requesting donation. No requests have been made to the school board this year. Another one responded, we do not have a building level process. We have not requested additional funds. Again, 3 no responses. Does your athletic coordinator and/or principal have a copy of the district athletics uniform rotation schedule? I had indicated equipment rotation schedule, so that was a little confusing to the schools. So 2 responded yes, 2 responded no, and 3 no responses. Is there a process for requesting funding, purchase assistance from the district athletics office? 2 responded no, 2 responded they send an email request, and 3 no responses. Does your school offer in-school fundraising opportunities such as concession and/or game workers? 4 responded yes, including fry bread sales, popcorn sales, or food sales. 3 no response. What are the top 3 purchases from the student activities account for athletic programs? End of season banquet items, team t-shirts, warm-up gear, summer camps, food apparel, t-shirts, food awards, t-shirts, travel, meals, player spirit gear. Last question was, are there sufficient budget resources to cover your athletic programs? 1 school responded, we have sufficient funds to cover the basic needs for travel and food. Items in number 7 are not budgeted at the local school level, as long as it is allocated in our spring budget. 3rd response, no. Travel costs have increased. Costs of officials have consumed a large part of our budget this year. Profit from gate sales decreased due to the pandemic. Another response was no. Games had to be postponed and home game location was changed due to poor equipment. And then 3 no response. And that was the conclusion of our survey. Do we have any questions?
Am I correct in assuming that those 3 responses throughout the whole thing came from the same schools?
3 different locations. So there's
But the same one for all of them?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the same 3 for all questions.
3 schools then did not respond to any question?
Yes.
Wow. I won't at this point ask which 3 schools.
Is it okay if I respond? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Newcomb High School and Kirtland Middle School and the district athletic office. But
What was the third? I didn't understand.
the district athletic office.
Okay. I have no further questions. Any further questions from the board?
Other than a comment.
Go ahead.
I appreciate the assertiveness, because at least you're providing the opportunity to get some kind of feedback to help you direct what you're doing. So that's good. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I think superintendent, the rest of the departments under your charge should be doing the same thing.
Thank you. I agree with that. And I was thinking the same thing as she's going through the survey. I'm looking at the questions, taking notes, since we're going to be doing the same with the other departments. So, absolutely. Thank you. I have a comment from the audience. Is it okay if Assistant Superintendent speaks up there, Board President?
Mr. Assistant Superintendent, go ahead.
So very similar to them, I do a survey as well at the beginning of the year with the 16 principals that I oversee. And I do have data to indicate where we're at. But beginning of the year, here in January, I'll send it out again to see if we've improved. And then I'll give it at the end of the year as well, to track that growth. But like Amanda said, if we're not measuring it, we won't know what we need to improve. and we won't know where we're going to be going. So that's why a lot of the work very similar to them. That's how I look for improvement, to improve if I'm effective as well. But not only that, but getting feedback from the principals in the community. So very similar to what finance did. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond.
I just want to also add, in terms of the response time for these schools, it was a really quick turnaround time. I sent out these questions yesterday, and so I know that it was within a 24-hour turnaround time. So it was responding to the request from the board on Thursday night's meeting. So just to give some information back on that.
How many schools in total were surveyed?
8. So it was 6 schools, the 3 middle schools, the 3 high schools, and then the district athletics office.
So 5 could respond, but 3 could not?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allison. Any other questions from the board?
Are there any other questions from the board or comments? Thank you, Mr. Yazzie.
Thank you, sir.
I assumed we did. I wasn't even thinking. Item J, proposal for CCSD procurement threshold increased by Donovan Yazzie.
Thank you,
Mr.
Board
Lawler.
President, members of the board, Superintendent Carlson. At the last last month of the board meeting, we went ahead and I believe we presented to the board a proposals to increase the threshold for the procurement process. So what we went ahead and did in our procurement department was we went ahead and pulled the sections in the CCSD Business Policies and Procedures Manual. If you can go to the next page. And these are the 2 areas in our Business Policies and Procedures Manual that cover the $3,500 threshold. And so what we went ahead and did is, working in collaboration with our Central Purchasing Officer, or CPO, we went through the manual here and kind of redline the policies that were changed. Pretty much everything is the same. So I just was presenting this to the board relating to those red line changes in tonight's session, and at the board's discretion, if they choose to do so, I would get the permission from the board as well as Superintendent Carlson to forward this to our attorney that specializes in procurement to review these and could possibly present this at the next board meeting for approval, if that's possible, and or suggestions from the board after tonight's meeting. So if we can go ahead and go to page number 5 on this document, I'll go ahead and let the board know what pages have the revisions based off of the information from the last board meeting gathered. So on page 5, the red line there, those are the changes there within the policy. We're taking out the second line because that's kind of redundant with the information shared. So page 5 has the policy revisions there. Page 6 the revision on the actual flow chart there. Page 7 has a revision replacing $3,500 to $10,000. Page 8, there's a typo that needs to be corrected. Page 9, page number 11. Has a replacing $35,000 to $10,000.
35.
I'm sorry,
3,500.
my bad. Thank you for the
That's all
correction.
right.
$3,500. Page number 14. This is just to correct the example portion. Page number 16. Information is now found on the Google Drive instead of the district website. Page 17. Correction of $3,500 to $10,000. Page 29. So we're taking out that whole section and just replacing it with that one line up to 10,000. It is recommended to use the best obtainable price. And page number 33. So in this section, I believe this is part of the RFP process. There's at the beginning of this policy, it already says in there that we have to report that to the governing board already. So, and then page number 39, I believe.
There's only 37.
Let's see, what number is it? 30, 39, 37, 38. They did not come up
In
with
my
it.
list, there's only 37.
Oh my goodness. 37.
Item 3 and 4. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, number F, section F. I don't think that might have uploaded when I did this year. Yeah, there's a page 39 that must have not showed up. My apologies there. Page 39 does have so cut off at 36, so we need 37, 38, 39. Okay, I'm missing 3 pages.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
these are just considerations for next month's board meeting, right, to be presented as changes?
Thank you, Board Member Montoya, members of Board, Superintendent Carlos. Yes, they're just considerations. I was just presenting it to the board, let them know kind of what we are doing in the process, and I was looking to see for questions, comments, and kind of next steps from here with the direction of Superintendent Carlson.
I thought that's what I heard, but it was just a point of clarity for me. Thank you.
Could you do me a favor? Being mine only goes to 37.
Yes,
is there some way you could make that available so that I can study it? Either in board docs or...
Yeah, I can go ahead and get those, yes, sent out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If there's a change in that, I'd like to See it out.
Any other questions?
Mr. President?
Go ahead.
Probably be a good consideration when we look at these things, obviously, for next month's meeting to ensure that we have our general counsel with us when we start talking about these things, because I know I'm pretty certain, obviously, that is it fair to say that it's going to be in line with everybody else around us with the changes of inflation and adjustments with cost that have been incurred over the past few years?
President Montoya, members of the board, Superintendent Carlson, yes, I believe this was based off of the information shared out at that previous board meeting, where we are in alignment with the federal minimal, the federal minimal threshold.
Any other questions from the board or comments? They're all there, the old ones sleep. Thank you, Mr. Yasi.
Thank you, Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Carlson.
Number 4, review consent agenda items. And
Mr. President?
see items pulled from consent agenda for approval.
I make a motion, in consideration of motion, to pull item K from the consent agenda for further discussion.
It's been moved that item K be removed from the consent agenda. Is there a second on that? I'll second that then. Mr. Montoya?
Are we voting?
We are.
Yes.
Ms. Haskey? Ms. George? Ms. Aspis? Ms. Aspis? Ms. George?
Board President,
How do you vote?
my apologies, Board President, this is Jermaine. I do not see them listed on the screen anymore. I'm not sure when they dropped off.
The other two are on?
I believe all that I hear right now is yourself and Board Member Montoya. Ms. Ray might have more information than I do.
I move we take a recess until we can get somebody responsive back on. We'll pause for a recess.
Put a notice on.
Hello, President Wells, I'm back on. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
We're good? We're good. You may proceed. Do the consent vote again, or the motion been made.
Are we back on, Jared? We're live? I'll entertain a motion to remove item K from the consent agenda. You want to make that motion again?
Mr. Wells, I make a motion to remove item K from the consent agenda.
We have a motion to remove item K from the consent agenda. Do we have a second to that?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that item K be removed from the consent agenda for further consideration. Mr. Montoya?
Yes.
Ms. Aspas? Ms. Haskey?
Yes.
Ms. George?
Yes.
Ms. Aspas? Myself will remove item K from the consent agenda. Number 5, consent agenda, approval of consent agenda. B, approved minutes for October 13th, 2022 work session and October 18th, 2022 regular school board. C, fundraising requests. 1, Shiprock High School Athletics, breakfast, lunch, dinner, sales. 2, Shiprock High School Athletic donations from companies. 3, Shiprock High School Athletics from Community League, Volleyball, and our Basketball League. D, National Youth Tobacco Survey for Kirtland Central High School and Newcomb High School. 3, request for approval of gift donation, KCHS baseball. F, request for approval of gift donation, Save the Children. G, request of approval for gift donation, ICO Steve Blanket. H, memorandum of understanding between the Indigitized Computer Service and Central Consolidated School District. I, procurement over $60,000. J, budget adjustment and journal entries. 1, 1100 operational. 0043-M. 2, 24308 CRRSA ESSER 3-0042-T. 3, 2430 ARPESSER 11 IDFA -0034-T. 4, 27411 Native American Language Certificate Salaries 0035-1B. 5, 31200 Public School Capital Outlay 0040-1. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item K.
I make a motion to approve the amended consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Montoya?
Yes.
Ms. George? Ms.
Yes.
Haskey?
I believe Ms. George affirmed.
I thought you did too. Ms. Haskey? Myself?
Yes.
Thank you. Myself, yes. Ms. Aspas? Ms. Aspas, can you hear me? Okay, on to 6, Board and Superintendent Report. Board member, item A, Board member report. Do we have a report from the board?
Mr. Wells?
Mr. Montoya?
Only to repeat the successes of what we had in respects to the Sacramento conference for the resolutions on impact aid. I think that was a very, very big deal, not just for CCSD, but all the schools within New Mexico to receive impact aid and across the United States, especially those schools that are on federally impacted lands. So I think that was a huge success that we were able to get that resolution passed by the National Congress of American Indians. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other reports from the board? Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, sir. Would you like a short report tonight?
Absolutely.
It's only 8:18, so.
Oh, wait a minute.
May
I interrupt, please?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. Happy birthday. That's my report.
Thank you. Thank you. It's old news.
Indeed.
Long ago. Thank you, though. Yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of a different turn today. I'm going to talk a little bit about several important opportunities that I've had to attend events in our school community. The first two of these were not so much actually just the school community. They happened a couple of weeks ago. In the morning, I had the opportunity to attend a ceremony that commemorated the finishing of the Ojo Road by the Navajo Nation Department of Transportation. And this new road is much safer than the previous approaches. I don't know if folks went into Ojo Elementary during the last few years very much, but the roads left a little bit of something to be desired. It's a beautiful new road, and it really makes the school and the community look a whole lot better. That same afternoon, I was able to attend the ceremony for the completion of the bridge in Sanasti. This bridge was built over the wash that flows through Sanasti and has made the passage really difficult for Central Consolidated buses as well as other traffic. At times, I'm sure everybody realizes that in the spring, the wash is pretty full, and that makes travel real difficult in that area. So this type of project is a huge win for the community of Sanasti and for Central Consolidated. Yesterday, I was able to travel down to Crown Point to Navajo Technical University, to NTU, to speak on behalf of the district and for NTU and to listen in discussions. I was joined by Board President Wells, Human Resources Coordinator Tanya Amrine, ICO coordinators Dr. Elfrida Harvey and Michelle Nakai-Gale, and also Eddie Garola and Brian Dowdy, representing Bond Wilson Technical Center. The purpose of the meeting was for the Higher Learning Commission, or HRC, to review NTU's application for the PhD, or Doctor of Philosophy in Diné Culture and Language Sustainability. So the HRC is the accrediting body for NTU. If accredited, this will be the first doctoral program from any tribal college or university in the United States. I will repeat that. The first doctoral program, accredited doctoral program from any tribal college or university in the United States. Therefore, this visit was of historical significance and of high importance. The HLC request?
I think there were 36 others or 32 others.
I think it was 36 others, yes, sir. I think it was 37 total. So that's a pretty amazing accomplishment. So they met with neighboring K through 12 school districts, and I will say that Central Consolidated's representation was fantastic, while the other districts maybe not quite so strong. Is that positive way to say that. But anyway, it was a really good presentation. We got to tour the lab out there, and boy, they have some really great facilities. And one of the things that they asked when we ate my birthday lunch, which was salmon and asparagus and roast potatoes, and was delicious, and would have been a $23 lunch at most restaurants. They did ask that we kind of let folks know about them and their facilities, and especially high school students from our area and from CCSD, and make sure we let them know that they have some amazing programs available. Mr. Wells could probably explain a little bit better what was going on in their labs, but their labs, the lab they had there was a maker space that is probably the best space of any institution outside of Sandia Labs and maybe New Mexico Tech. Is that about right?
Yes, I think that's correct. And also, to add to that, Sandia Lab sent some of their projects to them to complete or to work on different phases of it. Perhaps not the whole thing to complete. I said that erroneously, but to prepare and facilitate some of the things from the lab they were working on there.
Yes, fantastic facility. Anyway, so back to the Doctor of Philosophy, Dene Culture and Language Sustainability. The reason this program is important for our district is we need to garner as much support as we can for our language immersion goals that we have in this district. While we are beginning to see support for our dual language programs, we're lacking in curriculum materials, training, and especially staffing for these programs. I brought up with some of the folks as I was just kind of making the pitch for their program how at CCSD we get funding and we say we want to have programs, but we really don't have the curricula in place for some of those programs for dual language. And so we need to push for those, and one way to do that is this accreditation for the Dene Cultural Language Sustainability Program should bring some folks who have the expertise to help us in those endeavors that I know are very important to all the communities in our district. And so that's what I was up to yesterday for my birthday.
If I may?
Yes, sir.
In line with that, curriculum development also comes with the development of the pedagogy that is applicable to teaching the language as well. And that kind of speaks to what I've been saying for quite a while as far as when we look for the answers to help solve the problems is looking in your own backyard. And that's right in our own backyard. So kudos for what they're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's a great addendum to that, and so very true. I think if we increase the level of rigor and the amount of folks with doctorates and with higher levels of education, and bring them here, we're going to just see lots of good things happening. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Requested action items and our reports for the next meeting.
Mr. President, I'd like to suggest at this time, again, I know we've said it before as far as possibly having a special meeting sooner than later in respects to addressing some of the issues that we've talked about today, especially in regards to either that resolution and or the redistricting, possibly. So just as a consideration.
Yeah, we need to get that improved and in place. That has a definite timestamp.
I believe that ethics one is the one that's the most pertinent, correct? That's by the end of November?
That would be by the end of
The end
November.
of December. Had to be in by the end of the year.
He's talking about the one that with Ms. Chappelle.
Yeah,
and
that one.
ICO, the equity.
Oh.
So that needs to be done by the
The
end
equity.
of November.
The one with the equity.
Mm-hmm.
That one.
The other two have to be actually, the resolution doesn't have to be done necessarily within any time frame. It could be no.
Yeah.
But the sooner, the better financially, as far as I'm concerned. Not that I'm the board and making those recommendations, because I don't hold the purse strings. You all do. But the redistricting does need to be done ASAP. That's one that you all might really want to study, because there's, between the two proposals, there's some distinct differences that I'm sure you all, I know you zoomed in and saw some things, but
a little bit of a wraparound.
Yeah, and again, that's 100% a board decision, and I'm not going to jump in. I could give you my input if you ask, but that's definitely a board decision, because it affects you greatly. So I'm here at your discretion. But
Okay, yeah. Again, just for a point of clarity, I think I said ethics, but I meant equity. Having a special meeting for resolving that one sooner than later.
Any other suggestions from the board?
Yes, Board President, I like to add something.
Go ahead.
I would like, and maybe it's not for the next board meeting, but I would like superintendent to make the arrangements for the public information session regarding the Newcomb Elementary School. If he could provide when that's going to be, time and date, so that we can plan our attendance accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Haskey.
Anything else from the board for future meetings? Number 8, Plus and Delta. Ms. Aspas? Ms. Haskey?
The plus is that we covered a lot of information. I think that it was a very productive meeting, and I don't have any deltas. Thank you.
Ms. George?
We were shorter on time for the whole evening. That's good. And all the information provided tonight was really good. No deltas. Thank you.
Mr. Montoya?
It's not my delta, but I think Steve's a year older. And happy birthday, Steve.
Oh, yes. Happy birthday.
Should we all sing happy birthday to Mr. Carlson?
I shouldn't be laughing. I'm too far. I'm not too far behind him.
I don't believe you can do that with the Zoom call. I've tried the song. I've tried the sing-alongs before. It's not in real time.
Yeah, we'll just all wish you happy birthday. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Any second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting. Mr. Montoya?
Yes.
Ms. Aspas? Ms. George?
Yes.
Ms. Haskey?
Yes.
Myself, yes. We are adjourned.
And it's 8:30. Thank you all.
And happy birthday again, Steve.
Good night, everyone.